Good day in the name of Yeshua. I have started reading out of an ancient collection of books called the Holy Bible. I myself read out of the extra biblical texts as well of men that walked with God, because I have there's part of me that's drawn to it. I'm asking God about that. Abba has also asked me to start reading out of a couple other books. I read out loud and I get greater comprehension. It's a challenge for me to read out loud alone, so this is I have a friend who uses ruminations and confessions in various forms, and it's been helpful to me, so I'm going to kind of carry on that tradition, I suppose. And so I like to read out loud. So the couple of the books that God is wanting me to read, and I haven't been able to do, so maybe you guys can help me by interacting with me. One is Holiness by J.C. Ryle. John Charles Ryle, from 1816 to 1900 is when he lived, so he was 84 years old, approximately. Once believed that Christianity must be one of the most disagreeable occupations on earth or in heaven. But one day in 1837, he happed into a church where, hearing scripture read aloud, he was transformed. One verse, and the emphasis made in between each clause, gripped him. Ephesians 2:18. By grace are ye saved, through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. In 1841, the Church of England ordained him as a minister of the gospel. In 1880, when he was 64 years old, after serving 39 years in the ministry, he became the first bishop of Liverpool, a post he held for 20 years. He was affectionately known as the working man's bishop. Ryle was a theological vertebrate. He never suffered from what he called a boneless, nerveless, jellyfish condition of soul. Ooh, I like that. Ooh. His convictions were not negotiable. Indeed, his successor described him as that man of granite. Archbishop Maggie called him the frank and manly Mr. Ryle. Charles Spurgeon said he was an evangelical champion. Ryle simply observed, what is won dearly is prized highly and clung to firmly. J.C. Ryle died on Trinity Sunday, 1900. Today, more than 100 years after his death, his works stand at the crossroads between the historic faith and modern evangelicalism. They are signposts directing us to the old paths, and holiness, no doubt, is not least among them, for without it no man shall see the Lord. Enough said. The other is another classic, Earth's Earliest Ages by George H. Pember. George H. Pember, quote from him, "The influences of the Spirit of God are even now in process of withdrawal." This was written in late 1800s. As he prepares for that departure from earth, which will leave it open for Nephilim, sevenfold worse than those who formerly dwelt in it, to enter, and for a short season, to work their will upon the human race. Then will all the Nephilim, who are yet at liberty, be among men, and will quickly make them feel the meaning of that awful utterance. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. As far back as the beginning of time, and within every major culture of the ancient world, the astonishingly consistent story is told of gods who descended from heaven and materialized in bodies of flesh from Rome to Greece, and before that to Egypt, Persia, and Assyria, Babylonia, and Sumer. The earliest records of civilization tell of the era when powerful beings known to the Hebrews as Watchers, and in the book of Genesis as the, the Benai, the Benai Elohim, sons of God, mingled themselves with humans, giving birth to part celestial, part terrestrial hybrids known as Nephilim. When English theologian George Hawkins Pember, in his 1876 masterpiece, Earth's Earliest Ages, analyzed the prophecy of Jesus Christ in Matthew 24 that says the end times would be a repeat of the days of Noah, he concluded the final and most fearful sign heralding the Lord's second coming would be the return of the Nephilim, the appearance upon the earth of beings from the principality of the air and their unlawful intercourse with the human race. Jesus himself is answering his disciples concerning the signs of his coming and the end of the world. Verified it would be as the days of Noah were. Matthew 24:37. The implication is, just as it was before the flood, when the spirits of Nephilim were powerful upon the earth. Genesis 6:4. Mankind would experience an end times renaissance of the influence of these entities. Does a curious verse in the book of Daniel validate Pember's thesis? Speaking of the last days of human government, Daniel said, "They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." While Daniel does not explain who they that mingle themselves with the seed of men are, the personal pronoun they raises questions over what or who in the end times mingle with the seed of men. Who are these non-seed? It staggers the mind to contemplate how the same phenomenon that occurred in Genesis chapter 6, where non-human species or non-seed mingled with human seed and produced Nephilim, could happen again in the end times. Yet when this verse from Daniel is coupled with Genesis 3:15, which says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed," Zerah, meaning offspring, descendants, or children, and her seed, an incredible tenet emerges that Satan has seed, that it is an eternity with Christ, and that it is set to return in these last days. That it is at enmity with Christ. An incredible tenet emerges that Satan has seed, that it is at enmity with Christ, and that it is set to return in these last days. George Hawkins Pember, from 1836 to 1910, was an English theologian and author affiliated with the Plymouth Brethren. His works included The Antichrist, Babylon and the Coming Kingdom, the great prophecies of the centuries concerning Israel and the Gentiles, Mystery Babylon the Great, and others. Earth's Earliest Ages is considered by many his magnum opus and has been touted worldwide as a classical masterpiece. So when I start reading these books, I will refer back to, because these authors deserve all the credit for these. I'm just going to share them with you. So I say these things because there are many who might try to do things to keep me from doing it, including social networks. In the name of Yeshua, I love each and every